All right, today I'm going to show you how to make a decal from very beginning to the end. Now, what's cool about this is actually for somebody else. This is not for me, so I'm going to make it exactly the way that they want it to be. They want to do some constellations, so like a starry night, and they gave me a list of the ones that they're interested in. So the first one we're going to work on is Orion. If I pronounce these wrong, I'm sorry. So we're going to go to the internet, and I'm just going to look up Orion Constellation. Now, it's very specific on what we're looking for of what can be used for a decal. So we're going to go to the image tab first. So you're going to see actual pictures of the constellation, but what we really want to look for is more of a silhouette, and that is a really good word to try to remember. So I'm going to type in silhouette constellation, and you'll see now we're going to get more of what I want, which is this picture here. Now it's pretty blurry, so we could do one of two things. We can take it anyways, or sometimes if you wait a few seconds, this picture kind of unblurries. And then your third option, I guess, you can open image in a new tab, and then up here at the top a new tab will open, and then the picture does come out less blurry. This is a vector stock, so it is purposely blurry so that you don't steal it, use it, take it, whatever you want. Now we can look at other places. You might see them in better quality. You just want to make sure that it compares to everything else. Okay, so like this one, for example, over here is not the same. So maybe it looks good, but it's not the right picture. So you want to make sure you get that correct. Alrighty, so this one looks really nice. We're going to save the image. Right click, save as. Now I have a folder set up because this is actually for somebody else, so that first one's going to go there. Let's look up another one. I'm just going to replace the word Orion with Little Dipper. Probably one we all know. Here is a photo. This one looks pretty good. Now the problem I'm having is this looks different than other ones. So I'm going to get rid of the word silhouette for a second. This is where you want to make sure you're doing a good job for your customers or for your client, whatever you want to call it. You're not just giving them the first thing that you Google search, because that might not be right, especially if you're picking a topic that you're not really knowledgeable on. Example, this one. Maybe it's going to be a sports team and you pick the wrong color for that team. You really need to pay attention. So here is a more realistic picture of the Little Dipper. Now it looks like the Big Dipper is kind of coming with, so she just wrote Little Dipper. So I don't really want to do the big and the little. So here's this one. This says Little Dipper. That looks really nice. I wonder if I could turn this into a silhouette on my own. Well, what I can do is take this one and just use this smaller portion here. Just trying to look through and see if there's some better ones. These aren't terrible, but these are more like stickers. So yeah, Redbubble, that's a sticker website. All right, we're going to use this one. We're going to save this one in that folder as well. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to do this for all the rest of them. I'm not going to talk my way through it, but I'm going to speed it up so you can watch me find all the pictures and save them all in a folder. Just want to jump in here. Did you know that Ursa Major is the same as the Big Dipper, and Ursa Minor is the Little Dipper, which is why I was having trouble finding them separate. I found this picture, which is really going to be helpful, so I'm going to save this up. This has a lot of the ones that I need, so I'll be able to separate it on the software. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do on our software is we want to set our paper size. So for this example, it's going to be about 14 inches wide. It's smaller paper. Actually, I lied. We're going to use the bigger paper. I have 28 inch, and then you can make it as long as you want. Realistically, it's how much paper you have on the roll. 50 is probably going to be way more than we need, so I'm just going to write 30 for now. So our paper is 28 by 30. So this is the max amount of space that we can put images in. We're going to go up to our images, import images, and here's our pictures. I did a rocket ship earlier, and we're going to start from the top of my list, which is the Orion, and work our way backwards. I am going to import this one first, so I'm going to double click on it. This little clear box will show up. Don't freak out. It's just asking you to place it somewhere here on the screen, so we're going to click on that, and you're going to see the picture. But what's most important, and the first thing you really should do, is go up and vectorize it. Here at the top, there's this button that says Vectorize. That button will disappear if you do not have the picture selected. So I'm going to purposely click off the picture. That Vectorize word goes away. I click back on the picture, the Vectorize button comes back up. I'm going to click on it. This is going to give you a little preview of what it's going to look like. So vectorizing is basically removing any of the white background. We've done that before on Photoshop and Photopea. We are going to let this software do it on its own, which is amazing, and I wish more softwares did this on their own. We're going to hit trace. As you see in the preview, it's going to trace everything on the screen. We're going to accept it. I do want to maybe add some more detail in corners. I'm going to bring this corner up a little bit. We're going to retrace it. I just want those stars to be a little bit more pointy rather than rounded. I'm going to actually bring it all the way up. Let's see how this looks like. Nope, that actually looks worse, so we're going to bring it down. Let's try it again. Yeah, I think in the like 60 to 70 range, that looks a lot better. I'm gonna even bring it down farther and see if that looks better. I just don't feel like I'm happy with how that looks. That's pretty good. Smoothing. Let's bring down the smoothing so they are a little bit sharper. Okay, and then you're going to accept it. Now, your picture is really small, so you are welcome to make it bigger just so you can see what you're doing. I am going to inevitably end up retyping all these words because you can see the insides of the letters did not get cut out, or like this O here, it's got this goofy little curve in here. I'm going to delete the words and retype them. When you have text, it's way better for you to actually type it on this software, which is over here in the A button, rather than trying to use something from something else, unless it's very specific and it's a part of the logo, like an athletic logo or really any kind of logo. So they did want Orion, which I don't see in this picture. So I'm going to go and insert in that picture as well, which I already got at the very beginning. And I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. Now, please note, this is a fake PNG, or a thing, a lot of my students like to call it. That is when it looks like it's a PNG because it has those checkered backgrounds, but then when you insert it into your software, if that's Publisher or Photoshop, these little checkers come up. Those checkers should not come up. It should not be a part of the picture. It should be transparent. So this is a fake PNG. A lot of people will upload pictures online, want you to use their photo, so they make it look like it's transparent, but it's really not. We still need to vectorize it, so we're going to go click that up there. Now, the software is smart enough to know what to keep and what not. Please notice the difference between these checkers here and these checkers here. This is the correct kind of checkers. We're going to trace it. And we're going to accept. So now it is vectorized and we've lost those checkers in the background. Okay, so the client actually said she wants the constellations to be between 6 and 12 inches, but when I reached out to her, she said she wants them closer to 12. So here's where you need to make a decision. So if I click on this Orion one, if you look up here at the top, it tells you the diameter and width, I guess, so height and width of that shape. So right now the width is 8.4 inches and the height is 12. You got to make the decision. Is it going to be 12 inches tall and like you're good? Or does she want it to be 12 inches wide? So when you do that, it makes it much, much, much bigger. But then the height is 17 inches, and that is really, really big. Now, earlier I cut out a rocket ship. The rocket ship was 3 feet tall. So having something 17 inches tall is way too big in comparison to the rocket ship. So we're probably going to want to go with the latter and this be 12 and not the other way around. Okay, so we're going to do that here. And I am a little concerned about a couple things here. So if we zoom in, and zooming in on the software is kind of a pain in the butt. These have dotted lines. In a decal and something that's only 12 inches wide, you don't want to have dotted lines. It'd be better if this was a solid. So there's a couple ways to fix this. So we can click on this picture, and you're going to right click, and it's going to say ungroup. So I'm going to click ungroup, and we're going to use ungroup later. What it's going to do now is anything that's a separate piece, so like this little bar, we can click on it and we can delete it. So you can kind of do it a little bit faster. You can highlight things and you can use the delete key on your keyboard. Now, what we won't be able to delete is this little knob that comes out, this knob that comes out. Again, I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to zoom in and zoom out. It's not like Photoshop where you can use the Control or the Alt key to zoom in. Now, you can go over to a freehand tool and you can click on where you want it to start, click on where you want it to end, and that usually will do that for you, but that's not straight. I don't like that. So we probably want to look at, let's see what this polyline does here. I think what we just need to do is change the thickness here. So we're going to want to unlock this because whatever you do the one number, it's going to change the other number. So if you unlock it, it's going to be able to be changed one at a time, which is good if you want something to be thicker or just longer. So let's see what 1 looks like. So it just widens it. It doesn't actually thicken the line. So I think another option would be to come in here and make a really thin rectangle, tall rectangle. I'm going to actually delete my original one here and place that in its spot. Now we have a few issues because I'm not sure if I'm going to get this to be able to go, yeah, exactly where I want it to go. It needs to be more curved, I guess. So if you kind of look at this one, it curves a little bit. So at this point, instead of trying to edit the picture on this software, it is probably to your best interest to take this to Photoshop and actually fix it properly. I think your last option obviously would be to go to the internet and try and find a different one. That's up to you. Let's just look for it again and find a new one. Now, this one actually is really nice, even though it's not what we're looking for and we want it black and white. Again, this is that vector stock. We're going to open image in a new tab and see if we can get it less blurry. I'm going to save this image into that folder. Again, this is going to go to your drive. And when we come back to the software, we go to import the image. We're going to grab it, drop it in. Now, when we go up to Vectorize, it's going to try and figure out what you want to keep. Now, it's really hard to tell what you're seeing with this, but it's basically realizing that it wants you to get, or you want it to get rid of all this blue and keep the white, which is actually correct. You can change the color of the white to visualize it different. I think you can do that this way here. So it's still picking up this vector stock, which is in white, but we can get rid of that later. So we're going to trace it and we're going to accept it. And now let's see what it looks like. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to actually undo it because I want to unvectorize it again. And I want to mess around with the smoothing and stuff because remember earlier it kind of looked goofy. I do want that to come out to be black so I can see what it looks like. Okay. If it doesn't come out black, you can come over here and make it black. It's not a big deal. All right, so that looks pretty good. Lines are solid in. She wants it 12 inches in height, so we're going to do 12 inches. One thing to make sure is I unselected this and unlocked it. I changed the 12 and it only changed the height. So you want to make sure it's called aspect ratio, where you are both changing the height and the width proportionally. So for example, let's say you had a picture of yourself and you only pulled the height of the picture, you're going to be really tall and skinny. Or let's say you do the opposite and pull on the sides, then you're going to make yourself really short but fat. So you want to make sure that you're pulling on these corners when you're changing the size of things so it goes proportionally with itself. Okay? That's really important. All right, so the customer also wants the name of the constellation placed next to the constellation. She wanted the first letter to be capitalized and the rest of the letters to be lowercase, just like you would write it. Versus, if you look at this example over here to the left, these are all caps. So the font is really important. She wants some kind of futuristic type of font. I have a lot of different ones already, but on the top of my head, I know I have, so this one is a one from Star Wars, right? Did we all get that? Here's our first one we are done with. We're going to leave this one off to the side. We're going to come back and focus on these smaller guys. Remember, we're going to click on this picture. We're going to right click and we're going to choose ungroup. I'm not sure if this little window is coming up for you, but I promise you it says ungroup. Now that we've done that, we're going to be able to delete all the names of everything. And there's only some that we need. So the next one is Aquarius. So Aquarius is down here. I'm going to click and grab this one. We're going to move it off to the side to play around with it. I am going to delete the Aquarius. I find it easier to come over to the one that we already have for the text and just copy it and we're going to paste it. So we'll drop on top of itself. We're going to just then click inside here so that we can change it to Aquarius. So one little trick here, if you did notice, it changed the font. That's one really crummy part about it. So what I usually do is don't erase the very first letter so it keeps the font style. I feel like I spelled that wrong. Maybe not. Nope, we're good. Always check your spelling. I'll give you an example, more into the printing world, but the teacher who taught graphics before me did a whole set of badminton t-shirts and spelled badminton wrong on every single t-shirt. So always make sure that you double check your spelling. Even if you feel really stupid and you're like, Aquarius, I should know how to spell Aquarius, check it. Google it. It's okay. Don't be ashamed. I'd rather you check it and spend 30 seconds on doing so than you give your customer or client or even for yourself something that's spelled wrong, because that's embarrassing, right? All right, so now we're going to go back and we're going to kind of highlight everything here and I'm going to right click again. I'm going to group it. So that way this all becomes one. So when I click on it to move it, it all goes together, the font and the shape. So I'm going to now change the height on this to be 12. All right, that has gone together. I'm gonna move this one off to the side. Another one is Pisces. So we're gonna come over here and grab this guy. We're gonna move him. And I'm going to click on the text and delete it because it's no bueno. We should be able to just paste because we already have this selected. We're gonna go in, we're gonna change the font, or not the font, but the wording. So remember, we can't erase the very first letter, but then we're gonna type it and we're gonna come back and we're going to erase it. We're going to grab this arrow here at the top, highlight everything, and we're going to group it. And now we're going to make this 12 inches. All right. I don't want all of the fonts to be sitting in the same spot. So like this Orion one's here at the top. And you also know it looks to be like really different in size. So I think I might make this a little bit bigger. You can also play around with its placement so that it looks like it's the same size as the other ones. That looks good. We're going to place that back here. I do like that much, much more. All right, so that one's 12 inches. I think I'm going to also take this one and group this one and then make this 12 inches because the font being on top is going to affect its total size. I do want them all to be relatively the same. Okay, I'm going to keep working on the rest of these. I'm not going to talk through every single one, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about printing and cutting and weeding. All right, now that you've watched me do all this work, lastly, we're going to take all of these and we're going to place them on our document. What I want to do is try to get as many in a small amount of space as possible because I want to save material. So kind of getting them to overlap like this would be ideal. I know it's hard to see. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Move this one over. This is why having them grouped makes it easier, because then you can just grab them instead of having to grab individual things, and it messes up how it was laid out. Now, we talked about earlier that we can make the length of our document whatever we want. So you'll see I'm short. I can't keep going off to the right in this direction because I'm going to go off my paper. So I'm going to make my length longer. Now, if you buy sheets where they're only like 12 inches by 12 inches, this is not going to work for you. This one was not grouped. So you're going to have to only do a couple per sheet, which in my opinion is not going to save you money, is actually going to be worse unless you're doing something small. Because these are big, you should buy big rolls. If you're going to be doing something little like a tiny decal, it's going to go on a car or on a cell phone case or a Chromebook, you can use a 12 by 12 sheet. If you're going to also run a business and you're going to want to do large format, which is bigger than, I would say, probably 8 or 9 inches wide, then you should probably buy rolls, because you're going to be using a lot of it, and your price per inch is going to be a lot cheaper buying a giant roll that's larger in width and also longer in length than a sheet.